This week on Enemy Sidelines, presented by Microsoft Teams, our guest is Nathan Segura. He does it all for the Cleveland Browns. He hosts the Browns Daily, Monday through Friday, 52 weeks a year. It's so impressive. Nathan, welcome. And it's been a few years since we spoke, but here the Browns are, 5-3 heading into week 10. I imagine the mood in Cleveland's got to be quite good these days.
Yeah, absolutely. We're off to a good start. First of all, it's great to talk with you again. And in recent history, since the Deshaun Watson has come down to the Texans, the Browns have not had much success against your team. So hopefully that will change. We need it this week. But yeah, 5-3 going into the bye week and certainly feeling good. You would have liked to get that game against the Raiders, obviously direct competition for that final wild card spot, or the final two wild card spots in the AFC. But 5-3, getting healthy at the right time. Nick Chubb, Wyatt Teller, Austin Hooper, all returning to practice on Monday. So they should be back and good to go against the Texans. But yeah, it's just nice. Kevin Stefanski, I think he's just brought in a kind of what I would call, he's a smooth operator. He's brought in a sense of calm, a brand of football, a style of offense, a style of, Cleveland Browns football. Went back to our traditional uniforms, which I think look very sharp. So it's been an excellent start to things here at 5-3.
Well, the last time the Texans and the Browns played each other, Baker Mayfield was just a mere rookie. And here he is in year three. He's gone all those coaching changes, like you said. Where have you seen the most growth from him this year?
Well, so far, it's just taking care of the football. 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, so better than a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That was a big problem last year as he threw more than 20 interceptions. So that has been, I would say, the biggest part of his growth. And he's in an offense that's going to stress what he does well, the play action bootlegs, getting him out of the pocket. He's been very effective on those types of plays. And, while some people would say the Browns have been certainly a run-first team, and that would be true, in the one game where he had to do it through the air, he turned in his best performance against Cincinnati in a shootout with Joe Burrow. At one point, he completed 21 straight passes, which was a Browns franchise record. In fact, the streak was only snapped when they had to clock the ball on that final drive with no timeouts. Throws 5 touchdowns in that game. So you had to do it. You had to throw it. And he did that. So I thought that was a big game just for his development and the confidence that the team has in him. But really, it's been taking care of the football, and he's been phenomenal in the red zone. Really, we've been an excellent red zone offense this season, one of the most efficient teams in the red zone in terms of converting, 3s into 7s, and Baker's been a big part of that.
Well, just a few weeks ago, it seems like he got banged up in that game against Pittsburgh, and we saw a familiar face in Case Keenum come in relief, and then Baker bounced back the next week and had one of his best performances of the year. What do you attribute the fact that he's able to just bounce back just so differently than he did maybe as a rookie or even last year?
Well, I think part of it is just his comfort in the system is growing. And that's the thing. Remember, the Browns had put in a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new offensive system in 2020's offseason. And as you know, for the Texans, you just didn't have a lot of time to go through and learn something new. And so for the Browns, I think they were behind a little bit. But now it's an offense that suits him very well, suits his skill set. It's an offense that lends itself to efficiency at the quarterback position. And so I think he trusts in the system. He knows that his head coach, Kevin Stefanski, the play caller as well, is going to put him in good positions to succeed. He likes the guys that we have on this team. Obviously, we still wish we had Odell Beckham Jr., just like I'm sure you guys still wish you had DeAndre Hopkins there in Houston, albeit for different reasons. They are not available to our respective teams. But I just think it's kind of, he's settling in. Here he is with some stability. I think, as I said, a clearly defined kind of brand of football that the Browns are playing, and a head coach who is never going to get too high or too low. And I think that's good for a guy because Baker's so emotional and fiery. And to have a head coach that's, as we said, smooth operator, steady Eddie, I think has been very, very good for his development and just his demeanor and his success. And this team, it's not just Baker bouncing back. The Browns haven't lost consecutive games all year. They followed up each of their first 2 losses to Baltimore and to Pittsburgh with wins the following week, and they're going to try to do that again this Sunday against the Texans.
Well, you mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, that was the big storyline when he tore his ACL. He's out for the year. Unfortunately, top target for Baker Mayfield and the Browns is out now. So who steps up in his place? He's not easily replaceable. You got Jarvis Landry. Is it him? Is it a mix of more run game? How do you make up for the loss of OBJ?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. There isn't one guy on this roster. And I think you looked at the trade deadline. Were they going to bring in a vertical threat? And this offense, it needs that vertical aspect to it. So if you're looking at the guys that maybe can step in and fill that role, Jarvis is still going to be Jarvis. He's leading your team. He's got the 33 catches, 419 yards so far this season. You're going to get more involved with your tight ends, Austin Hooper, who's back after missing 2 games after the emergency appendectomy. You've got Harrison Bryant, a rookie who's played well at tight end. You've got David Njoku. But in that receiver room, Hollywood Higgins more of a possession guy. Donovan Peoples-Jones is more of a big body contested catch guy. In terms of taking the top off of defense, there are 2 guys. Kaderil Hodge, who's kind of a long strider, a former special teams ace. Last year, 4 catches, averaged 19 yards a catch. This year, he hasn't been too involved. He missed some time with a hamstring, but he's still 3 catches, 51, 17 yards a catch. So he can get down the field. But then there's a guy that the Texans are probably familiar with from his time with the Titans, Taywan Taylor, who was a former 3rd-round pick of the Titans a few years ago, had nearly 500 yards 2 seasons ago. And he's a vertical type of a guy. I think the Browns will incorporate Taywan Taylor more and more as this season goes on and try to have him kind of stretch the field or at least run some of the routes because he will command the respect due to his speed that you had Odell run in certain situations.
Well, I remember a few years ago when the Browns signed Kareem Hunt, there was so much controversy surrounding him, but he's quietly put together a really good campaign in 2020, 3 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns. It seems like the Browns have incorporated him in a lot of different ways. How has he really helped elevate that offense?
He's a stud, and he runs so hard and so physically. And now that we get Nick Chubb back, and we'll talk about that tandem in a second, he had to step in, and Kareem Hunt leads the in yards from scrimmage, 642, leads the Browns in total touchdowns, 7, and receiving touchdowns with 4. He has been so good, especially in the red zone, and that's where you can create some mismatches with him. He's such a good pass catcher, and that's where his touchdowns come, in the red zone. So he has just been he's great in pass protection. He runs it very well in between the tackles or getting outside. And as I said, he's a mismatch waiting to happen in the passing game. So you think about the efficiency that he's shown there. As I said, those 4 touchdowns, it's just another weapon for Baker down there. And then now we get Nick Chubb back, and it's almost like he's a forgotten guy. But Nick Chubb, 2nd leading rusher in the NFL last season, And then this year, he only played 4 games. He was averaging 5.9 yards per carry, 4 rushing touchdowns in those 4 games, 339 yards rushing. And it was really 3 games and a quarter. He went out early against the Dallas Cowboys. So getting him back, you ask what this team is, what's its identity? It's running the football. When Nick Chubb went out after week 4, the Browns were the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. They have not been since he has been out. And getting that 1-2 punch is huge because if the Browns get a lead, what they were doing is they would wear you down with Nick Chubb. And then the 4th quarter, Kareem Hunt would come in fresh, and it was almost unfair. There were a couple of games where he averaged 8 yards a carry in the 4th quarter because he came in fresh and was just running all over defenses that were worn out. So the Browns are going to be able to get back to that, and that's something that's been missing. And really, Wyatt Teller was, I think Pro Football Focus's number 1 graded offensive lineman. He was the number 3 overall graded player in the league when he went down with his injury. So getting him back, getting Chubb back, and then Austin Hooper, who I think is really an unsung guy for what his contributions are in the run game, it's going to be massive. And the Browns are going to try to get back to their identity, which is running the ball. Because frankly, when you take on this Texans team and Deshaun's playing so well, Will Fuller 6 straight games with a touchdown, Cooks has a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 and is averaging almost 90 yards a game during that stretch. I think our best defense, and that our defense has struggled, is going to be ball control on offense, running it and wearing down this Texans team.
Yeah, and let's switch gears and talk about defense for a minute. For the Browns, our next gen stat presented by AWS has Myles Garrett tied for a sack leader in the NFL. He's got 9 along with Aaron Donald. So what about that Browns front? It seems like between him and Sheldon Richardson, that Browns front is pretty hard to stop.
It's a very good front. They had been a very good run defense all year. And I know the Texans really are not doing much running the ball so far this season, but they've been an excellent run defense this year, other than the Raiders game, which was in very, very strange weather conditions. But Myles is all world. I mean, Myles is making a case, I think, for MVP, not just Defensive Player of the Year. 9 sacks that you mentioned, 4 sack fumbles. He's already had 4 turnovers on sack strip fumbles, and the Browns are 4-0 in those games. He has 7, according to Next Gen Stats. I love that you quoted them, because he has 7 turnovers as a direct result of his pressures already this season. And to put that in perspective, the leader in that category a year ago for the full season had 6. So he's done 7 in 8 games. He's unbelievable. He gets a lot of attention. We've been banged up, though. Olivier Vernon's been banged up. He finally got healthy, had 2 sacks last week, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Veteran Adrian Claiborne had 2 sacks in the first 2 games, but he got hurt and hasn't really been healthy either. So they should be healthy coming off the bye. And yeah, when you have to double and triple Miles, it sets up a lot of one-on-ones for Sheldon Richardson, Larry Ogunjobi, and Claiborne and Vernon. The Browns need those guys to win them, because when teams have had time to throw, our corners have been very good. Denzel Ward and Terrence Mitchell and Kevin Johnson in the slot, who started his career with the Texans. That trio's been good. Our strong safety, Ronnie Harrison, came over from the Jags, a young player. He's been good. Free safety, linebackers have been a real problem, and the Browns have not been able to get off of the field on 3rd down. They've allowed 61 conversions on 3rd and 4th down combined. In fact, they've allowed 13 4th down conversions on 14 tries this year. And so that's been a problem. And I can tell you, in the bye week, that was the number one focus of the self-scouting that they did, was how do we get better at getting off the field? And you mentioned it can start up front with those guys. But the Browns' strategy in some ways has been, Miles is going to do something awesome. Let's make you run as many plays as possible. They don't really let the ball go over their head. They haven't given up many big plays vertically, only 2 pass plays over 40 yards, which I know has been a staple of what the Texans have done with Fuller and Cooks. And they had big touchdowns just last week, the pair of them. They're going to try to make it really work to get the ball down the field and hope Miles makes a play, or they take the ball away. The Browns had 14 takeaways in their first 8 games, which at the time was the leader in the NFL in that category.
Well, I was going to ask you about the bye week, what the top storylines are, but it sounds like the Browns are really focused on getting healthy. They get a lot of playmakers back this week. What are some of the other big storylines you're working on as these 2 teams face off on Sunday?
Yeah, you're right. It's getting your guys back on offense. It was kind of taking a look at Myles Garrett. He got banged up against the Raiders and certainly did not look like himself finishing, but he was good to go. Baker Mayfield is currently on the COVID list. He could be off by Wednesday, and so this could be old news by that point, but that's something that they're focusing on. Case Keenum had to take all the reps in practice on Monday. And then, as I mentioned, it's the defense, right? This team, and what's funny is the Browns offense, 5 games, they've scored 30 or more points. 3 games, they've scored less than 10. So they have been feast or famine offensively. No games in the teens, no games in the 20s, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So it's smoothing that out on offense. But I think really the focus is defensively, we have got to get off the field on those money downs.
Well, looking forward to a fun matchup, watching Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield sling it out. I really personally enjoy all the Baker Mayfield commercials. We sometimes joke that maybe there's just not enough. I'm totally joking. There's plenty of Baker Mayfield commercials.
There are plenty. We just want more wins, as many wins as there are commercials. And I think that's the way that it's trending, and it's great. And he has, by the way, he has fun with those. They let him kind of ad lib, and it's been fun seeing Jedrick Wills get involved in those. And so, yeah, I think this year's version they really have been good commercials. And I think they're always even better when you're watching, knowing that the Browns have won. But I do have one question for you, because, one of the stories they're making up here is, and we all know the truth of the matter was, in that draft, the Browns held pick number 12 before they traded it to the Houston Texans, who then moved up to select Deshaun Watson. Watson's 2-0 against the Browns. Does this one mean more to him? And then I'm going to add a bunch of names here. Fells, Duke Johnson. You got Eric Murray, Phillip Gaines. I mean, there are so many guys that have played with the Browns that are on this Texans team. I feel like there's a lot of connection and maybe a little, I want to show you guys what you're missing there. Anthony Weaver, the defensive coordinator, was on the Brown staff with
Romeo Crennel.
Romeo Crennel, former Brown. So a lot of connections in this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it means any more to Deshaun than any of the other games, but certainly when he plays some of those teams that passed him over in the draft, I think there is a little extra oomph in his step as he tries to prove himself. But you're right. There are a lot of former Browns players on this team. I think you named them all: Darren Fells, Eric Murray, Duke Johnson. And I think this is a big game for them heading up to Cleveland and getting to play their former team. I think for Romeo Crennel, he's passed through quite a few teams since his time with the Browns, but it's always a fun matchup. And for you guys, Kevin Johnson, that's such a familiar face. And, things didn't work out between him and the Texans, but he certainly, was a first-round pick, and there were a lot of high expectations for him.
And he's healthy, and he's finally healthy. Suffered a very scary injury, actually, in training camp, a lacerated liver, which was very scary. So he missed the beginning of the season. He's back now, and a great guy. Next time you interview Fells, ask him to tell you about the craziest. So he used to play pro basketball, I'm sure overseas. Right. Ask him about his craziest overseas pro basketball story. And you can say, the guy from the Browns told me it happened in Mexico. And he will know. And it is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard.
I will have to do. He's told us some pretty good stories about playing pro basketball in Mexico and overseas. So I'll definitely take you up on that. Nathan Segura, always a pleasure.
Huge element of danger, then it's the same story. If you do not know a story that involves a huge element of danger, then you have not heard it. And it's
I don't think I have. I don't think I remember a huge element of danger, because I'm pretty sure that would stand out to me. All right. Well, good stuff, Nathan. As always, thanks so much for the time, and looking forward to hearing more of you on Browns Daily every day up in Cleveland.
Thank you so much for having me on, and good luck to you. But this is the year we need this one. So you've had your good run. Browns need to get this one on Sunday.
Thanks for the time, Nathan.
You got it.